Okay, today's daf we're going to be learning is Nedarim daf pei. Today's daf is dedicated in honor of our daughter Chani. Upon finishing 3.5 years of army service, we are proud of you daily for all your dedication and hard work you have put in towards serving our country. Today's daf is sponsored by Heather Stone in memory of her father, Robert Stone, Yehuda Leib ben Naftali Alevi, marking 11 months since his death. May his neshama have an aliyah b'zkut our continued learning. Today's daf is sponsored by Wendy Proskin on the occasion of her daughter Orly Zucker's bat mitzvah this Shabbat, Parshat Shmot. May you always be as brave as Shifra and Pua. Thank you for being my chavruta. We love you, Mommy and Abba. Okay, we are going to get started on our daf. We have to review where we ended yesterday, or even really where we started, which was at the beginning of our chapter, our last chapter, which reminds me of two things. Number one, registration for the Siyum is all up, so I hope you've registered. If not, please register. We have a great program, great lineup. And secondly, went up a little bit late for all sorts of reasons, but there's now Gefet from last week, which is a fascinating topic. If you haven't listened yet, it just went up yesterday. On it was from about a week ago, can you be a shaliach to do a mitzvah for someone? If you remember, we talked about the whole thing of shlichut and where he was being a shaliach to be made for the neder, but then he couldn't hear the neder, right? And how did that work? So it's a really fascinating shiur on, can someone do a mitzvah for me, right? It's all sorts of things, right? So we mentioned it in class, and there's a Rabbanit El Shimoni did a whole shiur from Gefet in that topic, going in depth. So I recommended listening. Okay, starting with the Mishnah. So the Mishnah on Ayin Tet had said, "Elu dvarim shehu mefer." These are things the husband can nullify. Dvarim sheyesh behem inoi nefesh. Things that cause affliction of the soul. We'll define what that is. If she says, I will bathe or I won't bathe, I will adorn myself or I won't adorn myself, to which the Gemara had said, and this is where we ended yesterday, what exactly is this case? And then again, Rabbi Yosi comes and he disagrees entirely. He says these are not inoi nefesh. So we started with kind of filling in the gaps. Im erchatz is not the language of a neder, it's a language of a condition, so it must be a condition for a vow. So what could that be? So the Gemara had suggested maybe it's Konam perot alam alai im erchatz. It's really we're forbidding fruits, which is the inoi nefesh, but it's if I bathe. If I bathe, then I won't be able to have fruit. To which we said, that doesn't make any sense because according to the rabbis, it doesn't make sense because you can just avoid it. We shouldn't allow him to nullify it just because she said, if I do this, just don't do it. And then the neder won't happen. And that's a better way to get out of it. Rabbi Yosi, and that's again, assuming right now, which is a weird assumption because it's not the assumption we had originally. The first part of the sugya is assuming that rechitza itself is not a problem of inoi nefesh, okay, which goes against the way we understood our Mishnah. But it would have to be connected, im erchatz, it would be connected with something that was actually inoi nefesh. To which they said, number one, it's a problem for the rabbis because you could just avoid it as opposed to having him nullify it. And number two, according to Rabbi Yosi, you could basically say, well, that is inoi nefesh because maybe she will do rechitza and then it will come to inoi nefesh. So if he's like, there's no inoi nefesh here at all, what do you mean? There isn't inoi nefesh. Peyrod, he agrees, is inoi nefesh. And if it's a neder that's conditioned upon something else, if the condition is fulfilled, it'll be a neder of inoi nefesh, so we should be allowed to be made for. So we kind of attack it from all directions. To which the Gemara says, I will warn you, by the way, already yesterday we started, it was complicated, which is why I reviewed it now. And it's going to get complicated as we go on. The whole part, Amud Aleph today is quite complicated. As you see, it's short and there's a very long run on it. And as usual, different interpretations, which is what makes a daf complicated usually, because the commentaries themselves struggle to be able to read the simple reading, right? When there's a simple reading, it's pretty easy. When it's, and again, not always easy, but it's more complicated when it's hard to understand how to read everything. So the next is ve'ela, option 2, de'amra, we're now at the very top of daf pei. Konam hana'at rechitza alai la'olam im erchatz. So she says, it will be forbidden to me to benefit from bathing if I bathe. Okay. Mishum hachi meferla. So now this is going to be the reason why he can nullify the vow. Dehechitavi. What's she supposed to do? Now, you have to realize that at this point, the Gemara is going back to the original way of thinking, that rechitza itself is what the machloket is about, whether bathing, refraining from bathing is affliction of the soul or not. and therefore both the condition and the vow have to do with the bathing. The condition has to do with the bathing because those are the language of the Mishnah, imer chatz. And then the fulfillment of the condition would then, instead of being perot, which would be a problem, as we just explained, it would be rechitza itself. And then we're going to say like this. That's why he can nullify it. Because according to Tanakama, hechita abid, what she's supposed to do. Tirchatz, if she bathes, mitas rahana rechitza ala, she'll be forbidden to bathe forever. Lo tirchatz, if she doesn't, so that the vow is never fulfilled, well, then she can never bathe in order not to fulfill the vow. It's the same issue. Lo tirchatzi le nivula. It'll be disgusting for her. Again, equals inoi nefesh. So that's why the rabbis say in this case, she's basically stuck between a rock and a hard shell. She can't fulfill the neder. She cannot fulfill the neder. She's stuck. And if she wants to not make the neder happen, forget not fulfill the neder, right? Either she can cause the neder to come into place and then she'll be stuck, or she won't ever have the neder come into place, but she's still stuck because in order to make sure the neder never goes into place, she can't bathe. And Rabbi Yosi saval, efshar de lo rachza ulenivo lo chashinan. She could just not bathe, and we don't care about that. So she'll just avoid it. Or, right, she could do one or the other, or she could bathe and then the neder will happen. And either which way, we don't really care. That's not a neder that he can nullify because it's not inoi nefesh according to him. To which the Gemara, and here's where, okay, that wasn't so complicated. Here's where the Gemara gets a little complicated, and there's many interpretations here. Ihachi litnehachi. But if so, the language doesn't match. Now they're just troubled by the language. The language is Rabbi Yosi Omer, and it should have said, this condition doesn't have inoi nefesh. If the whole thing was the condition, right? And not only the whole thing, but we said, according to Rabbi Yosi, there's two possibilities. Either she doesn't fulfill the condition, the neder will never happen, or she does fulfill the condition and the neder happens, but doesn't really matter. Either way, neither is inoi nefesh. So according to Rabbi Yosi, the t'nai is equal in value, so to speak, to the neder. Now, what was the language of Rabbi Yosi? If you look back at the very top of Ayin Tet Amud Bet, Amar Rabbi Yosi, ein elu nidrei inoi nefesh. These are not vows of inoi nefesh. He should have said, this condition isn't a condition of inoi nefesh. Okay, because both why, if it's both the condition and the vow, you could have just said the vow and maybe include the condition. So the Gemara doesn't think that. So the question is, why are they bothered by the language? Because theoretically, it's both the vow and the condition. Could have been enough to just say the vow. So in order to answer this question, we're going to read the Ran. The Ran on Ihachi L'Nehachi, if then it should have said this, he quotes Rabbeinu Yonah, who says the following. Okay, Perish Harav Rabbeinu Yonah, Tahashta Ditana Ein Elu Nidrei Inoi Nefesh, because it says these are not vows of Inoi Nefesh. Mashma Dimishum She'en HaNeder Inoi Nefesh Le'yafer. It sounds like what's preventing this from being Inoi Nefesh? The words of the vow, which are, I will be forbidden to benefit from bathing, right? Forget about the if I bathe, right? If I bathe, now. Aval in adran midi di inoi nefesh yafer. What if it was, if I bathe, the fruits of the world will be forbidden upon me? What would you think? What would Rabbi Yosi say? If you say just this neder isn't inoi nefesh, then we would think, in other words, again, if the example of the Mishnah, which they're suggesting now, is Konam hanaat rechitza alai imerchatz, that both parts have to do with rechitza. What if I swapped the Konam part and put perot haolam alai? The fruits of the world will be forbidden to me if I bathe. Now, if you say the words ein elu nidrei inoi nefesh, then you're focusing on the vow part itself. So if you swap perot alai, perot haolam alai will be forbidden im erchatz, according to what Rabbi Yonah thinks, because it said this is, because it didn't say as long as you use this condition, it's not inoi nefesh. It didn't say that. It sounds like Rabbi Yosi would say, if the neder itself has to do with inoi nefesh, like fruits, it doesn't matter what the condition is. And that's not true. Because according to Rabbi Yosi, what did we ask just before? If you say, if I bathe, the fruits of the world will be forbidden on me, it's not a neder of inoi nefesh. Why? Because I could just never bathe. And according to Rabbi Yosi, that's doable. I could never bathe. And then the fruits of the world will never be forbidden on me. And therefore, my husband can't nullify that vow. So therefore, the language doesn't match. So Rabbi Yosi gives us a good explanation as to why the language here is so important. Because if it says, Ein elu nidre enu nefesh, we would think that it's only specifically because the vow itself was Konam, the benefit of bathing on me. And therefore, I would have come to the wrong conclusion, because really Rabbi Yosi thinks, according to this interpretation, as long as I say, if I bathe, then this will happen, then already the husband can't nullify. And therefore, it should have said, T'nai zeh ein b'inyan nefesh. To which the Gemara says, okay, let's try again. Third attempt. Ela da'amra, hana'at rechitza alay la'olam. The first part is still rechitza. Im erchatz hayom. Now we've changed a little mind or something. And again, it's going to be a bit of a debate why this makes all the difference. And there's a huge debate here about something else, which I'll talk about in a minute. She says, Konam, right? The same beginning part as the last one. Konam, the benefit of bathing upon me, if I bathe today. Rabbi Yosi savar nivul dechad yoma lo shmei nivul. He says not bathing for one day is not nivul. So therefore, she can make this condition because again, if she says imer chatzayom, if she does bathe today and the neder happens now. Okay, let's start with the first actually. If she doesn't bathe today, we don't care. That's not inui nefesh. She can do that, right? That's not according to him inui nefesh, and therefore it's fine. Now the Tanna Kama will say that's inui nefesh. Not to bathe for a day, inui nefesh. Okay, that's already afflicting your soul. No. Rabbi Yosi says, no, that's not nivul at all. Now, what does Rabbi Yosi mean when he says this? Does he mean just one day? Some people think that he means just one day. And actually, not bathing forever is inui nefesh. But that's hard to read according to the sugya in general. And therefore, most of the many commentaries disagree with that and think, no. What he means is not one day and not more days. Okay. If not, right? None of that is inui nefesh. Okay. So therefore, if you said it in this way, and now the problem is, how does this resolve our question from before? If the whole thing is the t'nai, why isn't the t'nai mentioned? Okay. So that's a bit of a question. It's a big question. And the commentaries grapple with that. Like, why does this resolve the problem that we had in the last section, which is if it's that the t'nai of imer chatzayom is not a problem according to Rabbi Yosi, then why don't you say t'nai zeh ein bo inui nefesh? So there's different explanations given for that. It could be that if we go with the interpretation, which to me seems like the simple interpretation or the right interpretation, that he means not one day and not multiple days, right? Not forever, also even wouldn't be. What's the bigger, unique halacha here? Obviously, if one day is not inui nefesh, that's not such a unique halacha, not to bathe for a day. But not to bathe forever is a huge, unique halacha. And that's why he focuses, if we're going to focus on one part or the other, and it's when they were equal, so we should focus on the t'nai part, because that, if you substitute something in the beginning, it would be different. But here, when we're comparing rechitza forever versus rechitza for one day, not bathing for one day, refraining from bathing for one day, the bigger unique halacha is in the neder. And that's why the language of neder was used and not t'nai. Okay, again, it's not a perfect answer. It's still a little bit difficult how this resolved what we did before, but I'm going to suffice with that. So until now, what we've gotten to is this was all to figure out the words. Remember, in the Mishnah, it said, these are the things that the husband can nullify, things that have inui nefesh, im erchatz. So we've now resolved im erchatz. We still have 3 more words to figure out. Im lo erchatz, im et kashet, im lo et kashet. So im erchatz, im et kashet, we've really resolved because they would both be the same. It would be konam hana'at rechitza alai, or konam kishut alai. I will not adorn myself if I adorn myself for a day, okay? Or if I bathe for a day. So basically, both parts are inui nefesh. That's what the Tanna Kama says. And according to Rabbi Yosi, neither is inui nefesh. Okay? Neither of these is something that would allow the husband to be made fair. She could basically live her life never shower, never bathing. She could live her life never adorning herself, according to Rabbi Yosi. But now the Gemara says, starting at the top of Amud Bet, Shanita imerchatz. So you've explained the words imerchatz. Hechidami. Lo erchatz hechidami. But what's the case of if I don't bathe? Okay, what would that be then? If it is that she says, Titzar hanaat rechitza la'olam alai im lo erchatz hayom. Okay, now let's figure it out. She says, it will be forbidden to me, the beginning's the same, it will be forbidden to me to bathe forever if I don't bathe today. Well, lama lahapara, she definitely doesn't need her husband to annul this vow. Titzache, the easiest way to get rid of it is bathe today. And then the neder will never happen. That's pretty simple. Okay? Amal Rabbi Yehuda, I see you're asking about Yom Kippur. Hold off on Yom Kippur. We're getting to that later. Okay? That's going to be in our sugya, no worries. Amal Rabbi Yehuda. De Amra. So now he says, I'll tell you what im lower chatz is. She says, Hanaat rechitza alai la'olam im lo erchatz b'mei mishcha. She says, benefit from bathing will be forbidden to me if I don't bathe in disgusting water. Okay, what's this? This is water mixed with flax seeds, okay, or flax. So if you want to learn more about this, Flashback this week is all about flax and the reality of their day and what they were doing. But anyway, this is obviously something totally disgusting to bathe in flax water. And therefore, what we're saying here is, she's saying the rabbis are going to say that's inui nefesh to bathe in flax water. And if she doesn't bathe in flax water, then she won't be able to bathe for the rest of her life. This is kind of like someone saying a dare almost, right? This will be forbidden if I don't do this. Like I'm basically daring myself into bathing in this disgusting water. So the husband sees that as this is a crazy dare. This is inui nefesh. Either way, either you're stuck, right? You're going to do right one of two horrible things. But Rabbi Yosi doesn't view it that way. Okay, so there we have it. We have Hana'at rechitza alai im erchatz and Hana'at rechitza alai im lo erchatz b'mei mishcha. Okay, that's your chatz, lo erchatz. Although we now have a problem because we still have to explain what's im lo et kashet. So, dikabate dikatani im lo et kashet. What would be the example? What would be the parallel? Okay, if bathing is bathing in disgusting water, adorning yourself would be what? Im lo et kashet beneft. If I don't adorn myself with neft, that's like how do you translate neft? It's like oil, disgusting, like gasoline kind of thing, nafta. Okay, tar, something disgusting. Now, that's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as adorning yourself in something disgusting. Okay, that's basically not adorning yourself. So there's no basic way, right? They say lichluchu, that's dirt. That's not adorning yourself. So because it's an oxymoron, it's a meaningless statement. That's nothing. So therefore, this option falls to the wayside. Okay. Can't explain it that way. So now we have to go back. Now we don't go back to all the way to square one because we still have im erchatz and im et kashet. We still just have to figure out what's im lo erchatz v'im lo et kashet, because the bathing in disgusting water doesn't help us because adorning in disgusting materials would not really work. So now the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda da Amra, Hana'at rechitza la'olam alai im erchatz hayom. Okay, so that's still the same as before. The first part im erchatz is bathing will be forbidden to me forever if I bathe today. Ushvua shelo erchatz. Ushvua shelo erchatz. We're changing the im erchatz not to a vow. It's not like a konam, something like that. But it's, I take an oath that I won't bathe. Meaning it's the same meaning as the first case. It's just not a language of a vow. It's a language of an oath. Okay, which obviously we're going to say, if it was talking about oaths, why didn't it say so? We'll get there. So now they say, Hana'at kishut alai la'olam im et kashet hayom. How is the continuation going? Hana'at kishut alai im et kashet hayom. That's the same one. I won't adorn myself forever if I adorn myself today. Ushvua shelo et kashet. And I take an oath that I will not adorn myself. So those are four options that the woman says, that the rabbis say, this is inui nefesh. And the Rabbi Yosi says this is not inui nefesh. I see you're giving me a good translation, like kerosene. That's probably the best translation of something that we know. That would be neft. I couldn't think of that word at the time. Okay, thank you. So now, Amalei Ravina le Rav Ashi. Here comes our question. Hi, elu nidarim ushvuot mebayalei lebitnei. How did the Mishnah start? These are nidarim. These are vows that have inui nefesh. And then Rabbi Yosi says they don't. But it should have said these are vows and oaths that are inui nefesh. Amalei Tnei. Elul Nedarim Shvuot. So answer number one is, yeah, change the words. Yeah, the Mishnah said Elul Nedarim, add the word in Shvuot. Many times we say, amend the Mishnah, a word got lost, something. So, Ibaitema, Shvuot Nami, Hainu Nedarim. Alternatively, you could say the word neder includes oath. And here we'll just quote a Mishnah from earlier in the Masechet, Itnan, Ki nidrei rishaim, if somebody says like the vows of wicked people, nadar b'nazir b'korban u'b'shvua, it's relevant for a nazir, for a korban, and for an oath. In other words, neder could be a language that could be understood also as an oath. So there you have neder and oath are used, neder and shvua are used interchangeably. Vows, oath, it's all very similar, and therefore that shouldn't bother you at all. So we're done, sort of. Right now, we have our case. We're done with our case. We're not going to change that. That's the case in the Mishnah. So again, we have 4 cases. 2 of them are Konam, language of neder. This will be forbidden to me if I don't bathe today, or if I bathe today, or if I adorn myself today. And the shelo et kashet and shelo erchatz are languages of, I take an oath, I will not bathe. I take an oath, I will not adorn myself. And then again, that's the debate between Rabbi Yosi and Tanakama. Now comes the Gemara. Tanakama is used interchangeably with the rabbis. We assume it's the rabbis' position. So now the Gemara calls them the rabbis. Tanakama's opinion, Va'amru Rabbanan. We're going to have a question on Tanakama and a question on Rabbi Yosi. Amru Rabbanan, Rechitza yipayino nefesh, kilo rachza. Is bathing, not bathing, is inoi nefesh if you don't bathe? But wait, uramini, this contradicts a source in Yoma about Yom Kippur. Those who are asking about Yom Kippur, here it says, okay, there's 5 inuyim that are forbidden, 5 ways of what the Torah says, inoi ta'anoi nafshotechem, should afflict your soul, the same language we're using here. And one of the things are not to bathe. So it says, even though all these things are forbidden, you actually only get the karet punishment for eating, drinking, or doing work on Yom Kippur. But notice, you don't get punished as part of inoinet, right? For not bathing. So now we say, wait a minute. This seems like, right, I don't know what you were asking about Yom Kippur. You might have been asking the opposite against Rabbi Yosi, but this is saying, for the rabbis, if you think b'chitzah is inoi nefesh, you should get karet for bathing on Yom Kippur. To which they say, right, and if you say it's going to be inoi when you don't bathe, so if you bathe on Yom Kippur, that should get you karet. That's what it says in the Torah. Rava says we're going to learn it from its context. You have to afflict your soul, and when? On Yom Kippur. It has to be something that you feel the affliction that day. So right? We don't eat or drink on Yom Kippur for, I would say, the vast majority of people. There's one or two people, and then, every, I don't know how many, but who maybe don't get affected too much by not eating. But most of us feel it. Certainly by the end of Yom Kippur, you really feel it. It's hard. It's hard not to eat and not to drink. But most of you don't feel like, I need a shower, right? Maybe there's some people who feel desperate, but most people aren't already feeling the affliction. The affliction is more long-term. If you don't take care of your body, will cause problems and stuff down the road. But it's not really something you're going to feel that day. Nedarim, but look at the language by neder. There it says, and really on that day. By vows, it says, just as in order to afflict your soul, more like looking, la'anot nefesh is to afflict your soul, more looking toward the future, what will happen down the road. And therefore, it's something that will cause you to be afflicted later on. When you don't bathe, that will cause you affliction later on. So there you have the problem with Yom Kippur is resolved. So first of all, you could say, according to Rabbi Yosi, it's resolved as well. It's somewhat inoi nefesh, but not really inoi nefesh, and that's why you don't get karet for it. The rabbis, it's more problematic. If you see it as inoi nefesh, why don't you get karet? And there we have a response. Now we get to a really interesting source. Rami de Rabbi Yosi ad Rabbi Yosi. We're now going to say that Rabbi Yosi contradicts himself. And we're going to deal with this a lot more in tomorrow's daf. It's a Tosefta Bava Metzia, talking about a shared stream. Ma'ayan shel b'nei ha'il. We have a stream in our city, say my city, and it streams down into your city. But it's our stream, it starts by us. If there's not enough water for drinking, for us to live on, and for you to live on, so there's only enough for one city's worth, since it's our ma'ayan, our stream, gets to be ours. We have first priority. Let's say we have enough water to drink, but we don't have enough for the animals of our city and your city. So if it's a toss-up, who gets it? Our animals. Our animals get it first. If it's our doing laundry or you're doing laundry, so we need water for laundry, you need water for laundry. Our laundry goes before your laundry. If it's your life versus us getting water for laundry, obviously what's going to be? Obviously, right? Obviously, your life is going to precede my doing laundry. But here comes a fascinating line. Rabbi Yosi Omer. Now, Rabbi Yosi, who wasn't very concerned with clean bodies, right, and said not having a clean body is not inoi nefesh, says the following. We get water for laundry before you get water for life. Wow, fascinating. Okay, to which the Gemara says, if for laundering your clothes, he considers that sa'al, he basically considers that life-threatening if you can't do laundry. Okay, we're going to have to see why that is. Maybe I'll give you a little bit of a hint already, but Yosi says, if that is sa'al, guf kulo lo kol sheken, so obviously your body, if you can't wash your clothes, and that's inoi nefesh, for sure not washing your body is much more inoi nefesh. Okay? And therefore, says Rabbi Yosi in our Mishnah, makes no sense in light of that Tosefta. So now, did I say it wrong? If you don't do laundry, it's life-threatening if you don't do laundry. So what basically the Gemara is going to say, which is fascinating, and I just want to say this in case you're not going to listen to the Shabbat daf, what you have going on here, what they're eventually going to say is that actually not doing laundry is worse than not washing your body. And they believed, again, take it or leave it. But they said if you don't do laundry, it causes you to go mad, to lose your mind. And basically what's fascinating about this is that the Gemara is basically saying that mental health is on the same level as a life-threatening situation, which is an amazing thing to think that way back then they understood that. And it's basically, that's a very serious thing. And therefore, your laundry, which could cause you mental, going insane or however you would, again, I don't know exactly what it is, but why they believe that laundry did that, putting that aside. But not washing your clothes can cause you to lose your mind, go madness, however what you want to call it. That is not the same level as saving someone's life and something that's life-threatening. And therefore, since it's your city, you're going to get that before the other people are going to get their water for drinking, which is, I think, a really forward-thinking thing about taking care of people with mental health issues, basically at the same level as taking care of people's physical health. So there you have it. Good food for thought, and you'll see that in tomorrow's daf. Wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom, and continue into tomorrow's daf. I'll post the daf right after I post today's. Have a great day, everybody.